Hello, this is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to talk about the most powerful new moon of the year, the solar eclipse in 0 degrees of Cancer, which will be exact on June 21st at 2:41 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and 7:41 a.m. London time. And this is the beginning both of a new moon cycle and an eclipse cycle. In fact, this is the second of 3 eclipses in a 4-week period. We've already had a lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago. This is a solar eclipse, and we have another lunar eclipse in 2 weeks from now. So this is sort of like sandwiched in, but it's probably the most powerful one out of the 3. We will also talk about setting intentions for this eclipse cycle and the best time to do so towards the end of this video. So please keep in mind that setting intentions for a solar eclipse is different from setting intentions for a regular new moon. So please stay tuned if you don't know what that difference is. Now, since this will be a longer video due to the eclipse component, the timestamps that I have added to the description part of the video underneath the video might come in handy. So please check those out and use them as much as you need to. All right. So once again, we are dealing with lots of exalted energies, this time due to 3 planets switching directions within 4 days of the eclipse. So very exalted energies when it comes to those 3 planets, which is Mercury, Neptune, and Venus. Mercury having gone just retrograde, so still stationing, still strong in the sky. Neptune preparing for its retrograde phase, and Venus preparing for its direct motion, has just ended, is about to end its retrograde phase. So all 3 of them are very strong in the sky. So more about the specifics in regards to all these planets in a little bit, but first, let's talk about the eclipses and let's talk about what that entails. So you can think of eclipses as extra powerful lunations, extra powerful new and full moons. Now, usually in an eclipse, the sun, moon, and earth line up in such a way that the cosmic energies are much more intensified because there is this lineup. And so that usually amplifies shifts in consciousness, and it also exhilarates our soul evolution. And this is why eclipses are so powerful and so wonderful, potentially wonderful, depending on how we use them and what we do with them. Now, during a solar eclipse, the moon blocks the light of the sun because the moon is sort of lined up in between the sun and the earth. So this intensifies our connection to our emotional life, which is usually the full moon is the moon that has more of the emotional component to it. But with an eclipse, it's the new moon, it's the solar eclipse. So eclipses also reveal where we are ready to complete a major chapter in our lives and go to the next level with something. And they also help us remember our soul path. So again, they're very important, very powerful. Usually very important things in our lives happen when eclipses are connected to something in our birth chart, any kind of personal planets in particular. Now, we also talked about all 3 of the current eclipses in more detail in relationship to our own birth charts during the webinar about the eclipses. And if you haven't watched that yet, definitely check it out, either on my website at astrologercoach.com, or you can click on the link below this video as well. Other than booking a reading with me, these webinars are really the maximum level of support that I offer. And they're really only $37 for it. This one is 120 minutes long, so that's 2 hours. So that's pretty good. Now, let's talk a little bit more about eclipses. The eclipse is especially powerful because it happens in an exalted degree, 0 degrees. That's like the very beginning of a sign, and that's always much more exalted. And also 9 hours after the summer solstice. So there we have the summer solstice is on June 20th. And then we have the winter solstice every year, which is in December, right? So you have twice a year you have solstices, and they are like turning points because they're bringing in a new season, right? So they're energetic gateways for the summer and the winter season to come through. And so often that indicates a much greater chance for a new beginning of some sort. So something in connection with the Cancer energy, there's some kind of a new beginning that's coming in. Now the sun and the moon, like I said, are both in Cancer. And as always, they connect to one of the moon nodes during an eclipse. And in this case, it's going to be the North Node. And North Node eclipses help us explore an energy that promotes soul evolution. And we have been really experiencing these type of solar eclipses in Cancer since July 2018. And this will be the third and final North Node eclipse in Cancer until 2038. So quite a long time. These North Node eclipses happen every 19 years. So because solar eclipses sort of like happen every 19 years, they end a 19-year cycle and begin a new 19-year cycle every time they happen. So the last solar eclipse that happened in that degree and sign that was also a North Node eclipse happened on June 21st, 2001. And so given that it was also a North Node eclipse and that it was also happening in 0 degrees of Cancer, there are obvious some similarities here, especially in connection to our own birth charts, because it's falling into the same place in our own birth chart. So therefore, it's a good idea to kind of look back to the summer of 2001 and just ask yourself, were there any major endings or beginnings in my life at that time? Was there anything that was important to me at that time? And if the call now came to take those priorities to the next level, where would that level find me? Where would I need to be going right now? And just remember that it's not going to be identical what happens now versus 2001. There's just a resonance, an energetic resonance, okay? So don't expect there to be a repeat of what happened in 2001. And that's definitely not going to happen. First of all, because, we're 19 years older, a lot has happened, we have evolved, the collective has evolved in the last 19 years quite a bit. So it's definitely going to be different. But just to get a sense for the energy, that's all. That's all we're talking about. Now in Cancer, the new moon solar eclipse highlights the importance of listening to our feelings, focusing on self-care, healing old wounds from the past, and releasing unhealthy patterns that keep us stuck in the past. Now, the Cancer energy is also connected to family, to home. Now, this could be the physical or emotional home. It could be a shift with past issues around feeling at home, feeling safe, feeling nurtured, both internally or in the world. Internally, this is about being more rooted in our physical, emotional bodies and allowing ourselves to explore and celebrate the mother archetype, both within and without. Now, this would be things archetypically mother-related, like giving and receiving, nurturing. It's very important to understand with the Cancer energy, it's not just about giving, it's not just about receiving, it's about both. Because there needs to be a balance between the two in order for us to feel nurtured and to feel grounded in ourselves. Then also caring for ourselves in terms of our emotional and physical state and so on. So eclipses usually unfold over the following 6 months. So over the next 6 months, you can ask yourself, am I rooted in fertile ground where I am currently? Whether that's emotionally, whether that's physically where you're rooted right now, where you're living, where your home is, who you're connecting with. Am I rooted in fertile ground? And am I thriving? Do I feel like I'm thriving? Emotionally, physically? What else do I need to flourish and grow? What is required for me to really feel that I can flourish and grow? And really focus on what's needed on an emotional level. Because we're talking about Cancer here. This is our emotional needs. And what has changed for me in the past 2 years in that regard? Because remember, we've already had these eclipses in Cancer since 2018. So since then, we've already kind of been working with some of these energies. So what has changed for me in the past 2 years in regards to fertile ground, in regards to thriving, in regards to flourishing and growing, and all those things, all those Cancer qualities? And how does self-care show up in my life now versus then? What has been my progress in the last 2 years around self-care? And if you're looking for more guidance on those questions, I would suggest take a look at your natal chart. The house placement of the eclipse will indicate which area of your life is most ready to go to the new level of consciousness and to let you know where the work is happening for the next 6 months. Now, again, if you want to know how these powerful lunations are going to impact you personally, get the MP4 video presentation about the current 3 eclipses. You can get that on my website or click on the link below this video if that's of interest to you. Now, Cancer is all about supporting and protecting life, but many of us are conditioned to ignore our bodies and our environment, along with our inner life in particular, our feeling bodies in particular, and our emotional, spiritual connection to other life forms. So that can be animals, that can be plants, that can be other human beings, or can be nature. And this creates a disconnect, not only from our true selves, but also from the rest of the world. So most of us tend to put little value on emotional intelligence, but it's very hard to have meaningful, authentic connections without it, especially with other human beings. Because animals are a little bit easier. They're very unconditional in their love. But other human beings are much more complex. So we really need to learn about emotional intelligence and how we use our emotions, how we take care of our feelings, how we express our feelings, in order to have meaningful, authentic, and beautiful relationships in the world, with our families, with our significant others, with our friends, and so on. And so in order to have that, in order to have emotional intelligence, we need to start with self-connection and self-awareness first. Because if we're not connected here with ourselves, and we're not aware of our emotional body, then it's very difficult to connect with somebody else or to contribute something meaningful in that regard to another human being. So ask yourself, what might I do differently if my feelings were just little children that wanted to be heard? And the reason why I'm posing the question in that way is because feelings sometimes, for a lot of us, especially for the male population, feelings can be very difficult because they can be very uncomfortable, and it's something that we don't want to be with very often. And unless they're positive feelings, so-called positive feelings, right? And of course, positive feelings can be different for different people. But, you know, for most of the human population, there are an array of feelings that can be very uncomfortable. And so we tend to not want to be with it, or we either ignore them, suppress them, or fight them. So when we're doing that, we're not really doing ourselves a favor. So the reason why I posed the question in this way is because children are the perfect example for human beings that fully feel their feelings, fully express their feelings, and fully flow with their feeling body, because they're much more connected. They're still much more connected to their feeling body than most adults are. So just visualize that your feelings are like little children. And what might you do differently if that were so? What could you do for those little children? How could you let them be heard if your feelings were children? And what price might I be paying for denying or suppressing those little voices? And this is a really powerful question that I want you to actually sit with and contemplate. And you don't have to answer these questions right away, but it's really more about being with the question allowing yourself to receive sort of like receive a knowingness around what the answer could be, and just investigating it, investigating the question. You can do that via meditation, you can do that via journaling, you can do that just by sitting with it and just having the question in front of you and being present to it. So whatever works for you, you can maybe even do the questions with other people and maybe brainstorm or discuss it with other people. That's possible too. Whatever feels most comfortable to you. But remember, it's not about having an answer. It's really about allowing there to be an alignment with the energies connected to this solar eclipse. All right, now some other questions here. Could I simply allow myself to feel my feelings without needing to understand them? That's a big one, right? Because how often do we sit there as human beings and go, why am I feeling this? Why is this coming up right now? Why am I so upset? Right? Like things like that. I mean, I don't know if you have that. I certainly have that sometimes. And there's this, that the brain or the mind has this need to understand it so that it can either fix it or it can change it or it can work with it. But what if we just allowed ourselves to just feel the feelings without needing to understand them? How revolutionary would that be if we could just do that? And maybe just practice that. I mean, if that's something that you're not very familiar with, and if you're have been not so good at with and in the past, then just allow yourself to practice that, to take a moment and see, can I do this just for today? And could I simply allow myself to feel my feelings without needing to know why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, without launching into problem solving, which the mind loves to do? And if nothing else, could I try this out? If nothing else, could I try this out as an experiment just to see what might transpire? Practice, right? What I already said. And here's a bonus question. What would the mother archetype do? Now, if you just close your eyes and you imagine, even if you're male, right? The mother archetype has a very particular energy to it. And if you close your eyes and you think of what is the mother archetype? What does that feel like? And what would the mother archetype do when it comes to feelings? So just imagine that. Use your imagination. Now, if you're curious about learning about emotional intelligence and how this shows up in your birth chart, I would advise you to take a look at my webinar, React versus Respond, which deals with our emotional maturity. And it's a really helpful webinar where you can learn how to work with the moon in your chart, which is our emotional response to life. And because the moon is very closely connected to the Cancer energy, this is something we really want to understand over the next 6 months. So it's going to be very valuable for us to know how to deal with the moon energy in our own chart over the next 6 months. So feel free to check out that webinar. It is available on my website. I will also put a link underneath the video just so you have it easier to access it, okay? Now let's take a look at some of the aspects of this solar eclipse chart, right? So there's a couple, so feel free to, pause here if you want to, or jump back and forth between certain aspects. Timestamps are perfect for that. Now, the solar eclipse quincunxes Saturn in Aquarius and squares Mars in Pisces. So let's talk about that one at a time. The quincunx to Saturn, that's sort of like an uncomfortable aspect. It's also sometimes a health aspect. And that asks us to make some inner adjustments because we may be experiencing some internal discomfort. Something might feel uncomfortable. We might have to kind of like dance a little bit with the energies because Aquarius is so different from Cancer. So personal comfort and safety is important to Cancer, right? Which is where the solar eclipse is at. Yet Saturn in Aquarius reminds us that staying attached to the past is not going to lead to new creations, or it will bring forward any new visions for the future that we currently need to be building. So ask yourself, what future vision do I have for my various communities, locally or online? What's my vision? What do I visualize for the future to be? Because, of course, currently we're in a place where, there's a lot of not knowing about our future and a lot of not knowing how we're going to move forward with what's currently happening on this planet. So what future visions do I have for my various communities, locally or online? And could I stay open to bringing in some new structures so I can fulfill on my vision and create something sustainable? We really want to create something sustainable for humanity right now, or for our communities that we're connecting with or that we're connected to. And what is the worst that could happen if I chose quick over quality? And that's important because we certainly want quality. We want to create something that has quality in our various communities. There might be a desire to do it quickly as well, but often quick means that we might miss something, right? That we might miss a step, and then what's the quality going to be like, or how sustainable is it going to be if we're missing something? So what is the worst that could happen if we chose quick over quality? And what role does self-responsibility or self-care play in all of this? In all of this creating new communities or creating a new vision for the future? And what if I simply decided to stay adaptable? Allow yourself to just kind of like dance with this. When I like the word dancing with a quincunx, because the quincunx requires of us to adapt because it feels a little uncomfortable, and it's not really, the energies are not a match at all. So we need to dance. We need to kind of allow it to kind of like let it be what it is, like an open dance, like a modern open dance. Nothing clingy. All right. Now the square to Mars with the solar eclipse asks us to stretch ourselves and find creative solutions to seemingly unsolvable situations. So we tend to feel a bit scattered or dreamy with this square. So as best as you can, slow down, get present, and listen to your intuition before aimlessly zooming ahead. Be clear about what's healthy for you, not in general, but in this now moment. And this is very important because Mars is in Pisces, and Pisces is all about being present, being mindful. And mindful means being in the present moment. So when it comes to us investigating what's healthy for me right now, because obviously that's going to be a big question for everybody right now, is like, how can I maintain my health? How can I do something that works for me and that's healthy for me within the collective and within all the new rules and regulations that are currently happening? What's healthy for me? Not in general, but in this now moment. Because if we choose every moment to tune into that, that's going to be very helpful, because every moment is going to look differently. So ask yourself, am I over or underestimating my abilities and capabilities? That's a great question, because that will determine how we're dealing with things around us. So am I over or underestimating my abilities and capabilities? And what if even small actions could produce profound results? Sometimes we don't have to do a lot. Sometimes little things can do a lot for us. And could I give myself a break when I start to feel restless or anxious or impatient? Remember, we're talking about the Mars energy here, and it's squaring. That's not a very comfortable aspect either. So because there's a square with Mars, there could be restlessness, anxiety, impatience. So could I give myself a break? And when I say could I give myself a break, really what I mean is like, can I just stop for a moment? Can I stop for a moment if I feel this like, internal discomfort? And how might taking a deep breath support my body and mind when restlessness or overwhelm shows up? That's another one, overwhelm, right? Overwhelm is another one that could show up with Mars in Pisces. And what's the loving thing to do for my body mind? Might that also coincide with what's most healthy for me? So what's the loving thing to do? Very often we forget about love. We only think about problem solving. We only come from the mind. We only go, okay, what's healthy? What's not healthy? Blah, blah, blah. And we try to figure it out all from up here. And not to say that the mind is not a valuable tool. It is. But when it's disconnected from love and disconnected from the heart, it's not as valuable. So we have to consider that. So what's the loving thing to do for my body mind? And might that also coincide with what's most healthy for me at this time? Now, if you want to have access to the new moon solar eclipse questions from this video and the full moon videos every month, feel free to check out the various levels of membership on my website, because I have that available for my members. Unfortunately, if you're not a member, you only have access to the new moon videos. That's it. And actually, you also have access to the every Monday forecasts. So one day a week you have access to those forecasts as well, and some little snippets. But I do reserve most of my content for my members. So if you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account. You will find all my posts inside the My Content tab. And the new moon solar eclipse questions are available via the Solar Eclipse in Cancer article, the very latest by the evening of June 15th. Okay, just wanted to let you know that, so you can take a look at that. And as far as using the coaching questions goes, I advise you to use the coaching questions after the solar eclipse has become exact. So after June 21st. You don't necessarily want to be working with these questions already before the beginning of that new cycle. You want to use the questions during that cycle. So you can really use the questions for about 6 months between June 21st and November of this year. Now, back to the new moon solar eclipse. Another aspect that we want to look at is Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of the North Node in this eclipse chart and is currently in Cancer, stationing, which means it's exalted in the sky. It's already retrograde, and it squares Chiron in Aries, sextiles Uranus in Taurus, and trines Neptune in Pisces. So let's unpack that. There's a lot to talk about with Mercury, right? So on June 18th, so only 3 days before the eclipse becomes exact, Mercury, which is the planet associated with information, communication, and commerce, begins its second retrograde phase of the year. The first one was in March in Pisces. The second one here is in Cancer. It starts at almost 15 degrees of Cancer, and then it will backtrack until July 12th, when it stations direct at 5.5 degrees of Cancer. So, because this Mercury retrograde is kind of linked also to the last retrograde phase in terms of it, having been also in a water sign, also that, each retrograde phase sort of like that's the ending of the retrograde cycle. So if something began during the last Mercury retrograde phase, that is now something that you can be moving to the next level with this Mercury retrograde phase. And since the last retrograde phase was in March, when most of us started to quarantine, it sounds to me like with this retrograde phase, there's something new that's gonna come up, that we're either moving completely out of quarantine, or we're experiencing something else that has us move further into quarantine, something like that we will experience that's connected to what happened in March. Okay, now the Mercury retrograde occurs 3 to 4 times a year, so for about 3 weeks each. In this period, sometimes coincides with delays or setbacks, but are necessary slowdowns, impelling us to rethink, revamp, and realign with our soul intentions. So again, if we're moving out of quarantine right now, this could also mean that there might be some delays or some setbacks as far as how fast we can do that or in what form we can do that, what it's going to look like. There might still be a lot of restrictions that we might be experiencing, even though we might be slowly moving out of quarantine and so on. So ask yourself, what has been demanding my attention around communicating my feelings and needs? And in particular, the last, 3 weeks or so, what has been demanding my attention around communicating my feelings and needs? And what has been demanding my attention around family, my physical and emotional home or self-care? What about short journeys, transportation of any kind, my various communication devices, buying something or selling something that has emotional value to me? So all of those things, what's been sort of like in my face, or what's caught my attention? Now, Mercury square to Chiron in Aries, which is the archetype of the wounded healer, this aspect will be in place for quite a while. Probably until July 26th, due to both planets changing directions and stationing. So this aspect asks us to stretch and grow. It's challenging us to mend the wounded masculine within ourselves. And just remember, everybody has a masculine energy within themselves, not just men do. So on the one hand, we want to connect to what's familiar and stay in our comfort zones, right? Which is connected to that Mercury in Cancer. On the other hand, we're asked to be courageous and heal issues connected to anger, violence, or our sexual identity. And that's connected to Chiron and Aries. So as best as you can, make space for feeling vulnerable or emotional without seeing yourself as weak or less than. And this is perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to be yourself, to have your feelings, to be human. And that may involve feeling insecure, feeling separate, feeling angry once in a while. So give yourself compassion and love. Give that to yourself first and foremost. Also give it to other people if possible. After all, we're all human, not superhuman. Remember, it's very important with Chiron. That's the process towards healing, is to remember that we're human. And that brings compassion, that brings understanding, that brings sort of like an open heart to the table. We're not superhuman. And if we can allow the inner masculine to protect and co-create with the feminine, then we will go much further than we can imagine. So just remember, the masculine is about taking action or being assertive. It's connected to that outward motion, right? Doing something, connecting with the outside world. And the feminine energy is connected to more of an inward focus, allowing ourselves to feel, allowing ourselves to receive, connect to our feeling body, connect to our intuitive body. So it's more of an introverted, internal motion, the feminine. The masculine is more of an extroverted, external motion. So if we can co-create, if we can allow the inner masculine to protect and co-create with the feminine, we will go much further than we can imagine. Okay, very important, because that balance is really, really, really important right now and also for our future. So ask yourself, where does the wounded masculine cry out for my compassionate awareness or even my care? And what if I gave it also to those who have not been able to model the masculine energies in an acceptable way? And this is a very powerful question And it's a question that is so important these days, because there is a lot of people out there who do not model the masculine energies in a way that is healthy and wholesome and holistic. And so what if I gave compassionate awareness or care to those who have not been able to model the masculine energies in an acceptable way, that just haven't been capable of doing that had that limitation? People have limitations, and we have limitations too ourselves. So what if I gave compassionate awareness and care to those that have that limitation around the masculine energy? And what if I extended that even to myself, if and when I fall into that category, even when I get triggered? Because sometimes we get triggered. Sometimes we don't handle the masculine energy at its highest vibration either. You know, everybody has moments where the masculine becomes destructive. Everybody, whether that's internally or externally, whether that's with yourself or with other people, you know, we all have those moments. So what if I extended that compassionate awareness and care even to myself, if and when I fall into that category of, you know, not being able to model the masculine energy in an acceptable way, even when I get triggered? Now remember, anger can be a reaction to a boundary violation and or a cover for another emotion that we're not comfortable with feeling. So it could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be shame, but anger can cover up other feelings. And especially for people who are not very much in touch with their own feeling body, or who have not learned as in childhood to connect with their feeling body, anger can be very often one that is easier to go to, because it has more energy to it, anger, than other feelings. Now, what if I give myself permission to make space both for healing limitations around my persona or my anger, and for rethinking home, family issues, something connected to the past, or something connected to the feeling body? What if I give myself permission to make space for both of those things? Now, if you are not yet a star member, but you would like to learn a little bit more about the Chiron station phase and the Mercury station phase that's coming up in July, and also the upcoming Chiron retrograde phase and the Mercury direct motion that's happening on July 12th, you might want to join us for the next monthly forecasting forum, which will be live on July 12th, because we'll be looking directly at our own birth charts to see how all of these planetary movements will affect each one of us. So that's just an option. I just wanted to mention it. And then also very important, for the next 2 weeks only, so I should say until June 30th, because everybody's watching the video on a different day, right? So until June 30th, you can get a free month of my star membership, and this includes an invitation to my next monthly forecasting forum in July. So that's available. So basically you can come for free to the monthly forecasting forum if you take advantage of this offer before June 30th. You can get lots of discounts also for readings as a star member. You can get lots of discounts for astrology courses, for coaching healing sessions. You can get access to my daily and weekly and bi-monthly forecasts. And all you have to do is just go to my website and sign up for a star membership and add the discount code MSTAR. MSTAR. And I will write that also below the video. You can just use that discount code at checkout. That discount code will expire on June 30th, so use it before then. And there will also be a link to sign up for the free star membership below this video. And also, if after a month of being a star member, you decide that you don't want to continue with the membership, no hard feelings. You can either pause it, you can cancel it, or you can downgrade it to the universal membership, which is the more basic membership as well. So there's lots of options for you. So don't worry, you're not stuck with the membership once you sign up, all right? Now let's talk a little bit more about some other aspects with Mercury in the solar eclipse chart. Mercury's sextile to Uranus in Taurus. Now this gives us the opportunity to connect to family or our found family, whatever we consider family, and create breakthroughs around things that we enjoy through our five senses. Something that's connected to, something we can touch, something that's connected maybe to food, kind of like all the Taurian things, right? Our senses, maybe to art. And this may also be a good time to find a unique or global approach to financial matters or food distribution. And so therefore, we can also reach a sense of emotional security when we do that. So this is just some opportunities here, because a sextile is always an opportunity, something that you have to take advantage of. It's not just handed to us, right? So we gotta take action here. So ask yourself, what if the whole universe was intelligent? What if I just went by that assumption? The whole universe is intelligent. And what if that included every cell of my body? Since, my body is part of the universe, and my body has a lot of components, and the smallest components in my body are my cells, right? So what if every cell of my body was intelligent? And what knowledge would my body have for me? Is there anything in there that can inform me or that can give me insight into what it is that I need to be doing or what I need to be connecting with over the next 6 months? And what can I see as a possibility now that used to seem impossible before? Again, in connection to something that I value, something that's important to me, something that's connected to either my physical body or to my five senses. What can I see as a possibility now that used to seem impossible before? Now, Mercury is also trining Neptune in Pisces, and this supports sort of more of a flowing state, something in connection to emotional connections that we can have with ourselves and others, or spiritual or creative connections or endeavors. Our capacity for compassion is quite strong as well, both for ourselves and for others. And we feel especially intuitive with that trine. So ask yourself, when I tune in with myself, what do I feel connected to? What if I tune into life itself? Just the energy field, right, around me. What if I tune into the energy field around me? What from my past is asking to be released? What is asking to be set free? Where is it time to open myself up fully on an emotional level? Open my heart fully. Really allow myself to connect. And not just with the people that are in my household, but with humanity, with people out there, with everybody who's a living, energetic being on this planet. Where is it time to open myself up fully on an emotional level? Now, Neptune in Pisces is also stationing and exalted at the time of the solar eclipse, and is getting ready for its yearly 5 months retrograde phase, which starts on June 23rd. And so this is heightening our focus on our intuition and our ideals, what we think we really want from life, out of life, what our dreams are. So ask yourself, what has been demanding my attention when it comes to resting, when it comes to trusting, when it comes to allowing things? What's in my face around a long-term dream of mine that I've had for quite a while? And how closely am I in touch with my intuition, with my connection to source or soul energy? How closely am I in touch with that? So allow yourself to just kind of like feel into all of these things, right? Now, Venus in Gemini is also stationing and exalted as she nears the end of her retrograde phase on June 25th. So you can see really very closely right before and right after the eclipse, there's all these planets switching directions. So feel free to read more about all those station phases in my weekly forecasts. These are available to you once you are a Universal or a Star member of my online community. So get more info about those memberships, or just join. And again, for the next 2 weeks or until June 30th, you can get a free month of Star membership, which I already mentioned. So if you want to know more about that, on my website, or click on the link below here. And the discount code expires June 30th. So use it before then. Now, Venus also trines Saturn in Aquarius and sextiles Chiron in Aries. The trine to Saturn in Aquarius promotes a realistic and responsible long-term approach. We have the chance to better align our goals with our values and share them with others. And so you can ask yourself here, if I am completely honest with myself, what do I truly want for myself and the world long term? And what really matters to me? What would it look like if I built something sustainable and long lasting within my local or online communities that aligns with my values and my thinking? So again, just some questions that you can use. Also remember, because there's a lot of questions in this video, you don't have to use all of them, of course. You use the ones that resonate the most with you. I always recommend that. Now, the sextile to Chiron in Aries, between Venus in Gemini and Chiron in Aries, provides an opportunity to connect with others via sharing our experiences, engaging in a healing process around our personal identities. And if possible, journal on some of these questions that I'm going to be posing now, and maybe even brainstorm with other people about these questions, or share them with other people after you've journaled on them. Because it's sometimes, sharing with other people some of the investigations that we've made with ourselves, with our intuitive body and with our feeling body, can be so powerful for other people to hear about. And it also helps us to connect more closely with other people. And this is really something we want to practice right now. So ask yourself, what role that I identify with needs my love and understanding? What might change if I showed 5% more compassion towards my insecurities? What if I decided to take a more active part in my own healing process? I think that's a great question, right? What if I decided to take a more active part in my own healing process? Not just let that happen randomly, but to actually, what can I do to heal? How can I heal the best? Who can support me with my healing process? There's so many people out there nowadays that can support you with your healing process. So take advantage of all these wonderful people out there, all these angels out there who can support you. And what if I celebrated my flaws, idiosyncrasies, and insecurities? And that is a kind of an interesting question, right? Because how often do we really want to celebrate our flaws and idiosyncrasies and insecurities? So it's a question that very much aims at doing something that you normally would never do. And that's a good thing, because sometimes, just looking at life upside down, or looking at life from a completely different viewpoint that we normally wouldn't take, is really important. It helps us stay flexible. It helps us stay adaptable. And this is one thing that we really need to be right now. We need to be flexible. We need to be adaptable. one of the things that I thought of also with being adaptable and flexible because of the way things are currently was to kind of like embody that in a way. And the way I would embody that is for those of you who do yoga, and probably not everybody does, but for those of you who do yoga, I would say do an upside down yoga pose. Do a yoga pose where, where your feet are on top and your head is at the bottom. So it could be a handstand, it could be a headstand, it could be a shoulder stand, it could be a bridge. There are so many ways in yoga to do upside down poses. Maybe just look it up on YouTube and see if anybody shares upside down poses on YouTube. Because when you're in that pose, when you're in that yoga pose, everything looks differently. Everything feels differently. And if you can get comfortable being upside down in a yoga pose, guess what? You can also be comfortable being in your life right now as it's being completely turned upside down. So just allow your body to experience that. Allow your body to experience upside down in a way that feels comfortable to you. Start with a yoga pose. If that's your thing. I'm not saying everybody needs to do that. And certainly if that's not your thing, don't do it. But maybe experiment in another way. Maybe just, try to, lean, lie down on your bed or on your couch and lean, have your feet on top and lean down with your head and just look at the world upside down from that perspective. Just, how kids do that sometimes. They'll lay on a couch or on a bed and they'll just bend over and their head will be on the floor. Something like that. And just see how that feels and see if you can get comfortable with something like that on a physical level. Now, some other questions that you can ask here too is, what if my personal limitations were my main drivers for taking creative or unusual approaches? What if? And that's a really fantastic question because that's something we often don't think about. Often we think about personal limitations as this annoyance and as this thing that we might want to avoid or not even think about and that we don't want to talk about. We don't want to be with it. But what if my personal limitations were my main drivers for taking creative or unusual approaches in life with myself, with other people, with situations in life? I mean, very often people will do that. And what if taking a compassionate approach towards myself and others actually made for more fulfilling connections? And what has been my experience with all of this so far? And where could I gain through learning more? Okay, so some final thoughts for this powerful new moon solar eclipse. So we're kind of like finishing up here. Most conflict boils down to unmet or suppressed needs. When we can identify those needs and communicate them without judgment or blame, things open up and solutions quickly appear. Now, if you find yourself involved in a conflict over the next 6 months, which is pretty likely, I think, that we can say that most of us will, in a 6 month period, we will have some kind of conflict at some point with somebody, especially if you live with someone. Then ask yourself, which one of my most basic needs is not being met here? If there's conflict. And look, conflict doesn't mean that you have to have a blown out fight with each other, right? Conflict can just be like where something's not lining up, right? You're not agreeing or you're not in harmony with each other. And so you can ask yourself right there when that happens, which one of my most basic needs is not being met here? Am I feeling unappreciated or unloved? Am I feeling out of control or unsafe? Am I feeling separate or disconnected? Am I feeling too close to something or someone or too enmeshed? And once you have established what you're feeling, ask yourself, could I let go of wanting to feel appreciated or loved just for right now? If that's the thing that you're feeling. And note that we're not letting go of having that particular feeling. We're letting go of wanting it. So could I let go of wanting to feel appreciated or loved just for right now? Or could I let go of wanting to be in control if I'm feeling out of control? Could I let go of wanting to be safe if I'm feeling unsafe? Could I let go of wanting to be one, move closer, merge, belong, connect if I'm feeling separate or disconnected? Could I let go of wanting to be separate or further away just for right now if I'm feeling too enmeshed or too close to something? And again, in each of these cases, we're letting go of wanting, which is not the same thing as having it. So when we have a desire for something, when we want something, we're saying to the universe, I am lacking this. There's a lack of that in my life. So when we let go of wanting, what we're really doing is we're letting go of that lack. And that creates an opening, and that creates a feeling much more connected with ourselves. And that's helpful. That's a version of self-care. If we can take care of ourselves in that way when we're experiencing conflict, that's very powerful. So remember, these questions are all available in writing in the Solar Eclipse article that I will be posting by June 15. Okay, just remember that. So you have all of that available to you. If you're a member on my online community. Now keep in mind that we're living in a new world from just 3 months ago, right? And what worked well before may be holding us back now. And we're invited to learn when and how to receive, to be neither stuck in dependency nor caught up in mothering everyone else but ourselves. So feel free to reach out and get some support, from anybody that you know that can give you support. And if you are experiencing any challenges or transitional uncertainty, I'm also available for support if that's what's needed. If I'm your choice of support, feel free to get a coaching healing session with me. You can actually get a 15% discount on those if you take advantage of that free 1-month star membership before June 30th. So just know that there's discounts for coaching healing sessions included in that. And please take advantage of that, because we are going through some difficult times right now. Nobody says that you have to do this by yourself, that you have to do this alone. Asking for help is a sign of emotional maturity. Asking for help is a sign of emotional intelligence. So just remember that. Now, in the meantime, as best as you can, be aware of jumping to conclusions. Speak and listen from the heart. Remain curious and open to hearing what is true for someone else. And between now and July 20th, allow for the new templates to download. Stay centered and do your best to ground from within. Try using conscious breathing or conscious flexibility. And best of all, see if you can move to the observer position when it comes to the emotional and mental body. And if nothing else, just remember, this eclipse season won't last forever. In another 4 weeks, the downloads are completed. So as best as you can, allow yourself to be in a quiet, receptive state on the day of the eclipse. And you may also want to ask, what might become possible if I gave this to my body and my mind on a regular basis? And again, if you want to know how these powerful lunations are going to impact you personally, get the MP4 video presentation about the current three eclipses on my website, or click on the link below this video. Okay? All right, now if you have an ascendant, career point, or personal planets in 0 to 5 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, or Aries, or if you have any points or planets in 25 to 29 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo, then this eclipse is going to have the most impact for you. Now, even if you don't have planets and points in those degrees and signs, look at the house placement in your natal chart. Look at 0 degrees of Cancer. Where does that land in your natal chart? What area of life is most affected over the next 6 months by this solar eclipse for you personally? Or again, get a better understanding on how this might impact you personally by getting the webinar on the eclipses. That's an option. All right, now, solar eclipse intentions. How do we set solar eclipse intentions? A quick word about that. You may recall that this process is a little different from a regular new moon. So setting intentions for the next 6 months of an eclipse cycle means that we are really needing to focus a little bit bigger than just for the next 28 days with a regular new moon. And as for the timing of setting these intentions, the best and most potent time to set solar eclipse intentions is 48 hours after the solar eclipse. So you want to wait 2 days before you set your intentions after the eclipse happens, because the energies during the eclipse are so intense. The 48 hours before and after an eclipse are so intense that you really don't want to be engaging with anything if possible. I'm not saying, play dead for that time, but you certainly don't want to be setting intentions, because you're not going to be able to really connect in a meaningful way to the energies because they're too jarring. So we also want to avoid moon void, of course, phases, as always. So the best time for this eclipse will be anytime between 2:41 a.m. And 3:20 a.m. on June 23rd, which is 2 days after the eclipse becomes exact. And the second time we can set intentions, which will last a lot longer, for 17 hours, would be between 8:33 a.m. on June 23rd and 1:34 a.m. on June 24th. So we have 2 time frames. One is a very short time frame, just 45 minutes. The other one is a 17-hour time frame. All of the times that I just mentioned are given in Eastern time zone, US, New York time. If you live in a different time zone from that and converting time zones isn't your thing, I suggest joining my Facebook fan page or following me on Twitter. I will be posting several reminders on June 23rd and June 24th to let you know when it is time for you to set your solar eclipse intentions. So whenever you set them, make them powerful. They cover 6 months, and if possible, align them with the Cancer energy, which is all the stuff we talked about in this video. So feel free to go back to the video and re-listen to some of the stuff we talked about when you set your intentions. And for more information about setting intentions, go to my website, go to my blog page, and then look for astrology articles, or look for the tag New Moon Intentions, which is on the right-hand side of the blog page if you are looking at this from your computer. To sign up for my free newsletters, you can go to my homepage at astrologercoach.com or email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. The newsletter is being sent out approximately once or twice a month, has special offers, has my videos in it, has announcements about courses that I'm doing. So all of that's available. If that's of interest to you, feel free to sign up for that. And then if you have any general questions about the solar eclipse or about astrology in general, or about my soul-based astrology courses, feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that require of me to pull up your birth chart, please feel free to book a reading. There's lots of readings available, different times, different price points. You just go to my website at astrologercoach.com and just go to my services tab and go to where it says readings. My members will see me in about 2 weeks around the time of the full moon, the lunar eclipse. Everyone else in 4 weeks when the next new moon happens, around the time when eclipse season ends. And this next new moon will also be a new moon in Cancer. So we have actually 2 new moons in Cancer this month. So our attention is definitely going to be on the Cancer energy for quite a while. So we'll connect in 4 weeks for those of you who are not members, unless you choose to take advantage of my offer for the free star membership by June 30th. In that case, you will be registered for the next forecasting forum automatically. And you'll also have access to the lunar eclipse video that's coming up in 2 weeks. And if you're watching this after June 30th, then if you register for the next forecasting forum that is live on July 12th, you also get access for the members full moon video, members lunar eclipse video as well. All right. So lots of possibilities, lots of things that you can engage with. If you have any questions, of course, about all of the offers that I made today, feel free to reach out. I know there was a lot going on. So feel free to re-listen or to ask me questions, no problem. Now, have a fantastic solar eclipse. Stay present, stay healthy and grounded. Do your best to focus on self-care and keep raising your own frequencies as much as possible. That's how you serve the planets the best, okay? So have a good one. Much love. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.